In every hero's journey, there comes a point of no return. And yes, my friends, we now stand at the threshold. For the ordinary world has twisted and shattered. The mirror is fractured to such a degree that we can no longer look upon it in the same way again. Having little choice now, we must heed the call and set forth on our mission. It is time now to leave the illusion of the ordinary world behind, to venture beyond the bardos and hometown stomping grounds, which we now realize was safety only in its confinement. The veil has been lifted, and as the light now shines upon the caverns of our consciousness, both individually and collectively, the truths that have been kept in the dark are revealed, seen, and exhumed. However relieving it is to witness them come to light, they still must be exorcised, the grief and despair transcended, the ties that bind undone. In this unraveling, this undoing, we will find an empty space to begin again. But before the slate can be wiped clean, we must first make peace within ourselves. Call home to our center shattered aspects of our own mirror. We must love the unlovable, find acceptance in the uncertainty, and forgiveness within the walls we once built to harden the heart. The age of goodies and baddies is over. The time for initiation has begun. As we call ourselves home to the prism of the total self, the 0 point, the heart, we can allow all the rest to fall away. We can step forth on this journey in awareness of the infinite universe of possibilities and plant the seeds of regeneration and humble service along the way. For often seeds take root in chaos, planted along the winds of change, like the seed of the decaying fruit tied to the death of winter. Beginnings often hide themselves in ends. Hello, beautiful beings of light, and welcome to this Galactic Energy Report. I am so excited to have you all here with me today as we dive deeper into the energies that are unfolding across the universe at this time. When I first introduced the concept of 2022 being a year of balance and looking at it through the lens of the hero's journey, we saw that this first quarter was off with a bang. We had this continuation of the energy gateway in December carrying us into the new year, followed by the Rainbow Bridge Gateway, which opened up in February. And we are still experiencing this high frequency light. The violet ray of transmutation it's not just a stop and start. It's an ongoing energy that's pouring forth upon the planet, assisting us in the calibration of the grid. In my last deep dive, we discussed this as manifested in the solar flares that were intense in the month of February. And that has continued on into March. And if you go back through my channelings, you will see that we predicted the conflict in Ukraine and its resulting influence in that 2022 channeling back in January. So this was actually expected. I even said, and I quote, that there would be a lot of ego tripping going on by those in positions of power. So we can see these energies as walking a tightrope, and every few steps we stop, center, regain our balance, and move on again. This is a stair stepping into higher and higher frequencies which have been flooding the planet since the February gateway energies. And in that channeling, I went into detail about the story of Ragnarok And that is exactly what began to unfold directly after that channeling. And I'll link the first 3 energy reports in the description box because I know I'm going through this at a very high level, but I want to get to the current energies. But if you are new to the channel and you want to deep dive and see how this first quarter unfolded and what to expect further on, then you can go back and watch those other channelings. Because I think we all are here because we want to understand and integrate the why. That's what gives the journey context. So we looked at the why that was playing out on the world stage. And again, we discussed this before the event of Russia and Ukraine unfolded, as they seem to be channeling a little ahead of linear time. However, this is in order to prepare you energetically as to how events will unfold. And I believe it gives us a kind of safety net, understanding, okay, this is expected and all is well. It may not appear that way given the emphasis on a particular energy, and we'll discuss this more in detail later, but when I tap into the grid, yes, I can feel it and all is well. This is all happening for a reason, and that reason is our growth and expansion, and we are moving into higher and higher frequencies that are taking us into this abundance matrix. And what I came in to understand, into feeling into these energies, okay, is number one, this was going to be a year of balance, a time when we solidified the frequency of the abundance matrix, where we finished the convergence of timelines and brought the vertical line of the etheric and the horizontal line of the material realm into a state of balance, understanding that the scales had to oscillate before they could be brought into a state of balance, a state of harmony, that the collective was experiencing its true awakening this year, and with that comes the dark night of the soul. This was our time of gnosis or gnosis, that there were themes of dissonance that would be playing out collectively. However, again, we are the first. You are the first. You are the architect, the grid keepers, the way showers. So not to get, down into that energy as you are holding the frequency of the abundance matrix, and that there has to be a first. And this is why we chose to come down in this time of expansion. Number 2, we've understood that the 4th density is now the dominant resonant frequency globally. We went into detail as to the difference between a 3rd density experience, a 4th density experience, understanding that the 4th density still holds duality. It just takes on a more spiritual context. It becomes all about consciousness. It is moving from the outside in perspective of the 3rd density to the inside out perspective of the 4th density. And on the negative side, on the dense side, we've understood that this is a time of psychological manipulation, of thought wars, etc. And believe it or not, the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine is a perfect example of not only the lack matrix crumbling, the egos coming out to play, but of 4th density energy. Why? Because in 3rd density perspective, there would be a good guy and a bad guy. And don't get me wrong, the narrative has been trying so hard to paint this situation in that light. They understand that the lack matrix is crumbling, and they are trying desperately to, quote unquote, stay alive, because they need that energy of doubt, fear, conflict to stay afloat. They need separateness and division because that creates more and more of the energy vortex that is fading. And I want to just make this very clear. I do not condone violence in any form. I do not think that anyone anywhere deserves to have violence perpetuated against them. I do not believe anyone should ever be in a position to have to flee their homes, leave their families. And I think that goes without saying, but I don't want anyone to think that I am diminishing the pain that many people are experiencing at this time. And I am doing my part energetically to impact this in a swift resolution for all parties involved, just as I'm sure you are. I am discussing the energy and psychology, the consciousness of the global energy. And from that perspective, this conflict is a clear example of fourth density psychology. And I have looked at this from all perspectives, all sides. I am aware of what the narrative is saying. I am aware of what other interpretations are. I try to observe from a place of neutrality and allow the entire picture to form. And what has become clear is that there are many culpable parties, and it extends much further than just Russia and Ukraine. We have multiple global energy templates from the past, all coming forward into the light of day for transmutation. This is that convergent of divergent timelines I discussed in detail in the last channeling. Remember, this inversion matrix, these controlling frequencies from the inorganic moon are leaving. The karmic load that has been perceived that was inauthentically ours to hold is being cleared off of this planet. It's a spider web of energy all coming to a head. And the story that has perpetuated itself for many, many years is coming to a close. But the means used to fight in this battle is all about who's controlling the attention and therefore the energy of the collective. And unfortunately, it's not panning out for those that are desperately losing their grasp and looking to recapture the collective consciousness. We can really see things amping up from a thought war perspective, from the ideology of whomever captures the attention of the narrative captures the win, so to speak. So we have seen this idea of goodies and baddies trying to be inserted into the narrative. We have seen America try to get the buy-in from its population that in order to be a quote-unquote good citizen, you must endure and embrace inflation. We have seen sanctions placed against innocent citizens of Russia for doing nothing more than being born there. We have seen Putin shutting down access to information within the country, and the same is happening within America and other countries. The funnel of information being capped off and controlled. We have seen Ukrainian leaders pleading on social media for increased aid in the form of weapons and no-fly zones. The entire concept of biolabs and biological warfare has now come into the picture. Again, understanding that not only has this been something embedded in the collective controlling forces, but used as a tool. This is a huge departure from what used to be the biggest tool of control, which since the Second World War was always nuclear weapons. We have even heard talk openly about false flags, which is a psychological warfare tactic. So much has unfolded in the past few weeks. And so we've seen this clear shift in the attempt to control the information that is being consumed in order to create a narrative of their own design, which is something that was always happening. It just wasn't in the awareness of the collective. And we have also now seen how big business, social media, and tech firms and government are working together to achieve this goal. And previously, that was something that was, always portrayed as separate and apart and not linked. So, another example where we saw this was in Canada with the trucker convoy. Money was used as a weapon to control where the free will of the people could place their support through the shutting down of GoFundMes, etc. I mean, I could do a whole nother video dedicated to just this topic, but overall, the message here is that the energy has shifted into a fourth density perspective. This is a physical war, yes, but primarily this is about who controls the money and the resources on the planet, and who has the biggest megaphone in which to capture the attention. Remember, you pay with your attention, because it's becoming common knowledge now that our thoughts, ideas, and beliefs, where we spend our energy, is what's creating reality. Interestingly enough, we can see another clear example of this playing out this week at the Oscars. Whether you believe this incident to be staged or authentic doesn't really matter. What we see in this display are shadows coming out to play. And again, I am, in the know as it relates to Big Pharma hosting the show and its release of a new drug to treat alopecia. I have viewed the incident and the body language and tapped into the energy of it. Personally, I believe it to be authentic. That's just my personal opinion from an energetic standpoint. But again, this is actually irrelevant once you understand that we are all, in fact, playing a role. And whether that role was rehearsed or not, in this case, it would be to generate ratings or attention. It's done that nonetheless. So I'm interested in it from the lens of the energy and the density, and the lens in which we can view this through. So remember, in the fourth density, we are now looking at things from the perspective of consciousness. An easy way to remember this is third density is body. I am my car, my home, my marital status, my job, my money. Fourth density becomes mind. I am my thoughts, ideas, and beliefs. I am my morals. I am my knowledge. I am the stand that I take. And fifth density is spirit. I am that I am. I am unity. I am oneness. I am everything and nothing at all. I am neutrality. So it's body, mind, spirit. And again, where in the past there may have been a clear good guy, a clear bad guy, this incident instead has taken on a spiritual theme, a moral tenor, very indicative of fourth density consciousness. It poses the question, is it okay to joke about someone's medical condition, their appearance, their disability? What is the role of the male? Is he the protector? What is male energy? Is violence ever an acceptable response? Then there is the cultural and gender implications as well, discussing a woman's hair, let alone a black woman's hair or lack of it, let alone a woman who has suffered at the hands of a medical condition which resulted in said hair loss. You also have the societal template for beauty mixed into this. What is beautiful? What is feminine? Long hair has, long been a standard for women's beauty, symbolizing youth and luster, femininity, etc. Jokes abound also about the status of Will Smith and Jada Pinkett's marriage, recently discussing their open marriage openly, again, a societal norm that is being challenged quite heavily in recent years. So many ideologies and beliefs are in the mix of this, and I have seen super heated responses from all lenses and perspectives. And again, we can see it when we're viewing it from a density perspective. We can see that the incident itself and the response is all about my morals, my beliefs, and there is no clear cut good guy and bad guy. I found it funny when researching this for the video that Chris Rock's current tour is called Ego Death. And we find some wonderful examples of how an energy pendulum works, playing out in this sequence of events. So from a study of energy and capturing the energy of others, again, I could host a whole discussion about this from the perspective of density. However, as it relates to what we are integrating in this now moment, these are two current examples of how the collective has moved into a fourth density dominant resonant frequency, and how we are seeing the shadows now being brought into the light of our awareness. And number 3, what we've come to understand is that in order to root firmly into this next spiral of time-space, the age of Aquarius, we were going to have to allow the lack matrix to crumble. We were going to see a huge dissonance between our personal energy blueprint and the story of the collective energy blueprint, which in actuality is the minority. It's just that the minority has had the biggest megaphone for many, many years. And with that megaphone, they have been controlling the consciousness of the planet. And finally, we came into the awareness that the idea of karma, as we understood it in the age of Pisces, was now over. All perceived karmic debt is now wiped clean as the divergent timelines are integrated from this lack matrix. This was a time when the old programs were being wiped clean and we no longer had to stay tied to the inversion matrix through lower density cords and tethers. And this is the point in which we find ourselves now, the point of no return. In order to let go of the karmic story that we have been playing out lifetime after lifetime, we must first integrate these fractal aspects, the shadow, and recalibrate the ego. It's time now to let go of the old karmic story we were born into so that we can step into the spiritual story we were born to live. This is it. It's the reason we all wanted to be here during this time. It's not just a new chapter. This is a brand new book. And April is a month which we will be bringing into harmony. The 4th month of the year is all about bringing a recalibration, a balance, a harmony into our personal energy vortex. It's calling these fractal aspects back home and integrating them into our blueprint, our toroidal field, and moving into the total self, into wholeness. And at this point, if we choose to stay in the old story, then we are doing that out of our own free will. So this is a huge month. If you remember all the way back to that initial channeling, I said this was going to be a month of forward motion. And that is true. So you are going to be feeling a lot of stuff come up that you either need to clean up, let go, draw a boundary with, or that you just don't resonate with any longer. You will also have the opportunity to see just how far you've come in transcending stories that have been a part of your blueprint for not only this lifetime, but many, many lifetimes. And hopefully you have been working on your personal blueprint and infrastructure during this first 3 months. And you are starting to get a clearer picture of the landscape of the story you wish to write moving forward. I do think that it's not always going to feel comfortable this month as we are tying up a lot of loose ends and cleaning up our plate, so to speak. But we have a belief now that these things are indeed possible, and this sense of trust is starting to take shape, where there is just a knowing that if we fall into flow, somehow everything is going to be okay. It's going to work out. This is also going to be a very activating cycle. If you've not been in the blueprint energy for the last few months, the first quarter, you may all of a sudden feel called to action, called to mission. You may begin to see things more clearly. Also, I'm feeling that as we integrate these fractaled elements of our souls, these energy packets, okay, as we call them back home into our energy blueprint and we move more into the total self, you may begin to have more past life recall. Prior to this cycle, I had very little in the way of past life recall. However, just over the last month, I've been getting these glimpses as I'm calling this energy back into my blueprint. And it's been quite fascinating. So right on cue now, this leads me into the astrology. So today is this new moon in Aries, which is the 0 point of our zodiac. Okay, it's the 0 degree. It's the start of the cycle. And April Fool's Day itself, I believe, is very telling for this new moon. As prior to the Gregorian calendar coming into effect, the new year was always celebrated around the equinox, which, as I stated earlier, is also a 0 point. It is equal parts day and night. It is the transition of the spring in the northern hemisphere and the fall in the southern hemisphere. And there is some speculation that April Fool's Day was actually related to those who still celebrated the new year around this time, being quote unquote fools for not adopting the new date of January 1st as a new year. However, this is speculation because all that's really known about April Fool's Day is that no one really knows where it originated. However, we have been celebrating it in different forms all around the world since medieval times. There is this knowingness. We don't know why we're celebrating it, but there is this intuitive energy that comes up during this time where we understand it's a new cycle, it's a new beginning, where we can tap into that energy, that childlike energy of wonder and play. And if we take a closer look, into that energy, understanding that we are now experiencing the fourth density abundance matrix in earnest in the material realm, understanding that this is a 0 point of our balanced timeline. Okay, the convergence is taking place. That this is the heralding of our new journey, our new book. And then if we go even deeper into the archetypal energy of the Fool itself, in tarot, it is also the beginning of his journey, of a new cycle. He is often portrayed as carefree and apparently innocent looking, and he is looking rather, unaffected, as his next step is going to take him off of the edge of a cliff. But in order to have this new beginning, we also must be able to step off the cliff, to take this leap of faith, and to know that we will find a soft place to fall. Old habits have become outdated and no longer foster our growth. Oftentimes, this is a conscious decision. However, sometimes events will take place that signal to us we have outgrown a situation, a belief, or a phase in our lives. It is a call to adventure, an expansion of consciousness. And as it relates to the stage we are encountering on our hero's journey, okay, on the lens of the hero's journey, it is in total alignment to that 0 point of no return. So if we combine all of these energies with the equinox's 0 point, the Aries 0 point, the new moon, which is always a time of intention setting and new beginnings, you can see that the overwhelming energy is this forward movement towards a bright new future. As we make this leap, we are saying goodbye to the old karmic story we were born into and hello to the story of our design. And you can also see depicted, within the card here that the Fool is traveling light. He only has his knapsack. So he's not taking all this baggage with him on this brand new journey. He's integrated his shadow. He's recalibrated the ego. And also typically depicted is this dog, this companion, kind of nipping at his heels. And that's symbolizing our instinct and our intuition. And that is what he's bringing with him. He's bringing this companion and protector of his intuition, of his internal guidance system, not the baggage of the past. He's not carrying this old story. He can't if he's going to be, stepping off of a cliff and understanding that there's a soft place to fall. So I want to then delve more deeper into this energy that we need that's leading us to this new beginning, because that is where we're going into the end of the month with the energy cycle that will be coming up next, which, begins with a solar eclipse and ends with a lunar eclipse. But in order to get there, in order to step off of this cliff, in order to become that fool and really embody this new journey, we have to free up our baggage. Okay, we have to integrate the shadow, call back these fractaled aspects from this old story, reintegrate, repackage that into something brand new, and have a willingness to recalibrate the ego now into the fourth density abundance matrix. So in looking at this idea of recalibration of the ego and of integration of the shadow, I was in meditation this week preparing to film this, and I was sent a guide in the form of a plant, and more specifically a daffodil. And after I had this journey and this experience with the daffodil, the next morning I awoke to all of these signs of daffodils. I had this text message with the heading of a daffodil. I had a friend send me a message saying that they were prompted to buy daffodils and put them in their window, and it was a really cool experience. So it brought with it a message of peace, friendship, and new beginnings. The daffodil often represents the heralding of spring. It's known throughout time as inspiration for many poets and writers, inspiring them with their multitude and bright color. In China, for example, it is known as a very auspicious flower, as the flower blooms in March during the spring equinox, okay? So it has become a symbol of the Chinese New Year. If it blooms on the new year, it is said to bring with it extra wealth and good fortune throughout the year. And I also learned that under the right conditions, a daffodil can bloom for 50 years. 50 years, which is pretty amazing. However, the daffodil is also highly toxic and poisonous, and it is known to some cultures as an omen of bad luck. So the story of the daffodil is one of great paradox, and I meditated on it deeply in order to receive its message in context to our energies. And what struck me most was its origin as it relates to the story of Narcissus, gazing in this mirror, gazing so long that he wasted away, never understanding that he was, in fact, the reflection which he was longing for. Often told as a tale of vanity and self-absorption, and is where we get the term for narcissist, it's where it derives from. But if we see it from a higher perspective, it is actually a story of self-loathing and being so heavily identified with the physical self and material reality, what my team in spirit calls the automaton mind, that he was unable to even see that he was creating the reflection that he was longing for, that the reflection was simply an echo of what he had created. And this is extremely poignant given the mission we all have as a collective at this time, moving into the fourth density. It is an understanding that the mirror is simply a reflection of what is coming from inside, a projection of our internal world made manifest externally. And in the integration of this, we understand that gazing at the mirror, expecting it to change, coveting the reflection over the real thing, is a distortion of reality. If we want peace, harmony, love, abundance, we must cultivate that from within. Not in a narcissistic way, because this was his other great mistake. He withheld his love. He deemed no one worthy of his love. Therefore, he received nothing in return. When we truly understand that there is enough, we are enough, there is enough to go around, that our world is taking care of us, then it is easy to extend that state to others. It is easy to give our love freely without expectation, because we understand the infinite nature of all that is. However, we cannot do this if our gaze is trained on a reflection that is telling us there is not enough. We are not enough. The world is in turmoil and chaos. We cannot do this if there are aspects of ourself which we still have separated from the total self. Aspects which we have shoved down, bypassed, denied. Aspects of ourself that we have deemed unworthy. Because in doing so, we then become narcissists, gazing at an ideal that is simply a reflection of what is already there, but we do not have eyes in which to see. We must understand that in order to hold these new frequencies, in order to earn, in a sense, the right to these new gifts and abilities, the powers of manifestation that, as I've stated, is materializing faster than ever. We have to make sure that we have stepped into the total self, that we understand the ego and its role, that our programs are running at the highest and best of our dominant resonant frequency, or lest we start manifesting a whole lot of what is unwanted. This new story, this new script is our birthright. But in order to inherit it, we have to clean up anything that's left over from lifetimes of an age that was oriented around duality and specifically around sin and dogma, a material realm of hell. Things like being unbaptized, taking the Lord's name in vain, disobeying your parents were going to get you in big trouble. You are going to go to purgatory and be punished. This was the template I grew up with: fear, guilt, shame, punishment, atonement for things that I inherently understood made no sense. This is what we are purging right now, these old constructs and outdated belief systems, so that we may appreciate the beauty of the daffodil. We can honor its new beginning. And we can accept that if used inappropriately, it can be poisonous. If mishandled, it can cause harm. The same is true for our consciousness. We must be aware of the power we possess and handle appropriately. So this whole idea, everything is all wrapped up into this Jupiter-Venus conjunction in Pisces, which is this once-in-a-lifetime event which occurs on April 12th. So we can look at this whole energy cycle, okay, leading this integration, this forward motion, this letting go, this leaving the old karmic story behind, this recalibration, all calling this all back, moving into the total self, is all culminating into this conjunction, which is happening on April 12th, which will then push us to the next energy gateway, which happens at the end of the month between these two eclipses. All right, so let's get into the information there, because there's a lot spinning around in the ethers about this. Okay, so the Jupiter Neptune conjunction in Pisces. Again, this is a once-in-a-lifetime event. We have not had this exact conjunction since 1856, and it won't happen again until 2188. All right, so this is a very special energetic event that's occurring on April 12th. And whenever we have two planets that come together in an exact conjunction, what is it? Yep, you guessed it. It's a brand new cycle. So again, all signs are pointing to this brand new book beginning. And this is going to be deeply personal to your specific energy blueprint, okay? It has to do with whatever karmic load you carried with you through prior lifetimes in the age of Pisces. This is that baggage I've been discussing throughout this entire episode that you are letting go of. So if you want to know how this is going to be impacting you on a personal level, you can just feel into that energy. You can just go with the flow and experience it, or you can pull up your natal chart and see where Pisces is hitting in that 23 to, I believe, 25 degree point. And what house that's in, and that will kind of give you a clue as to where specifically this may be, you may be feeling this on a micro level. So understanding this from a larger energy perspective, both Neptune and Pisces rule the deepest realms of the subconscious mind. We discuss a lot in tethering about this being carried out by the moon, and that is true. However, this is the grid of consciousness where the collective subconscious derives from the universal perspective. So not just the Earth's grid, not just the Earth's collective consciousness, but the entire universe's subconscious realm. Okay, so its grid is also tied to our psychic abilities and intuition. When I feel into this grid and connect into this grid, it's an amplifier. It's almost like it's the universe's third eye. And in this conjunction, Neptune is clearing away the debris from the age of Pisces, as it's actually been stationed. Neptune has been stationed in Pisces since 2011. So if we go back to my last energy report, we see that in 2012 is when these energy cycles actually began becoming initiated into harvest energy. So its move in 2011 was a preparatory state, allowing us to move into the beginnings of this harvest in 2012. And it's actually going to remain in Pisces until 2026. So this is rewriting the program, with the energy in Pisces being all about spiritual awakening and metaphysics, and it is coming into this conjunction with Jupiter, which is all about expansion. So spiritual growth and expansion, the expansion of this new energy blueprint, dropping away of the age of Pisces from prior lifetimes and this karmic load. This has the potential to completely blow open the crown chakra and exponentially amplify the third eye. And as we discussed earlier, now that we're oscillating faster, now that we're in fourth density energy, now that we're clearing all this debris away, we need to be able to harness our new tools and ability, our new magic, and wield that power appropriately. And this whole cycle is this giant vortex, which is creating the manifestation of all of this simultaneously. And many of us are already feeling this energy because it is so powerful. It's going to be felt intensely in the week leading up to and in the week after, which again is just going to push us into this next energy gateway, which we'll discuss the next time in the next episode, with the eclipses being at the end of the month. So some of the symptoms you may be having are sleepless nights, feeling really wired, energy coursing into the head and feet. You may be experiencing headache, downloads, intense moments of clarity, epiphany. I had an experience the other day where I was able to step outside and see the energetic matrix. I've been able to see auric fields more clearly, especially around objects in nature, such as trees. It's this amplification so that you can see clearly what aspect of the story you're letting go of. Okay, so you also may be having intense astral travel and meditation experiences. I just posted about this yesterday, but in these connections with these plant guides, I had this experience, this astral travel experience, where I connected with a raspberry bush, and in this travel, I kind of scratched up against it. And when I came back the next morning, when I awoke in my physical body, I actually have scratches, these deep scratches across my back. So you may be having very intense meditative experience, astral travel experience, anything connected with third eye and crown chakra. And, definitely be working on tuning all of the chakras daily and getting that into a state of balance. Or, you could really have some kind of wonky type of physical manifestation. I know I've also been having periods of like heart palpitation. So that's how it's impacting us on a micro level, on a personal blueprint perspective. But on a more macro level, the energy, when I tapped into it, is all about this fire of transmutation, the fire of transformation. We need to allow this to transform in order to take that leap of faith. This is the official point of moving past the point of no return, okay? I spoke a lot about this fire in the last energy report, wherein we've traveled through the fire of transmutation, both in the micro and macro level. We've had this violet flame of transformation purifying the grid. And then from a micro perspective, our own internal fire has been lit in order to integrate our shadow and recalibrate the ego. So again, this is an inside job. This is all about how we are viewing the mirror and how we look to this mirror instead of looking within. There is something within that needs to be released, offered up, and surrendered so that we can begin to create a new vision in the mirror. We are freeing up our knapsacks, right? And taking that leap. We are creating this 0 point within in order to make space for this new book. And from a more macro perspective, I know that many of you are feeling fearful about this. I've had several of you contact me. There's been a lot of talk about famine and destruction, about extreme weather events. And as I said previously in my channeling of 2022, there will be some supply chain issues and extreme weather event and chaos energy that manifest in this crumbling of the lack matrix as we go through this story of Ragnarok. But there is not going to be an external apocalyptic event. Okay, we have avoided any true apocalyptic timelines. Okay, so you need to understand that an apocalyptic event has been used for thousands of years to kind of scare us straight. It's in our movies, it's in our religion, and it is true that many of us have this remembering, whether from lifetimes on other planets or Atlantis, where we did follow the path of destruction. This was a clear message from the Tarot group that there is no running away from this. It's in our DNA. It's in our celestial DNA, okay? The 12-strand DNA that's been coming online. And that we hold the gene keys to understanding that we're here to get it right this time, okay? However, fearing an end only brings about the end. And we are ending a cycle, okay, of long-held ideas, identity, belief. But that fear is not serving us in the fourth density. We really need to integrate the fact that this is a whole new world. We are standing in it, okay? It's here. It's manifest in the material realm. It may not appear that way in this now as everything is falling away. But as we talked about with the message from the daffodil, we are not to be looking at the mirror, the distortion of the mirror. We are to be looking within and creating that new reflection. And we will be delivered into our new earth. But it's not going to happen in one fell swoop. Okay, this, like I talked about all the way back in the beginning of this message, this is one step at a time. This is that tightrope. This is that year of oscillation before the scales can come into a state of balance. It's taking a few steps, regaining your balance, taking a few more steps, regaining your balance. Okay. And the other thing is too, that many of us are fearing these changes as lack. Okay. That is the old story. We're moving into the abundance matrix. So how can we reframe this into abundance? As I said in earlier channelings, these perceived lack events, famine, supply chain issues, etc., are really a call to get back to source. So I've talked about this before. In my own life, I've taken the cue to expand my garden this year, learn how to can food. I'm going to be implementing rainwater collection and composting. I've been training for this for years now on repurposing and thrifting and upcycling. And it's not been out of a sense of lack. It may have begun that way, okay? Because I was, starting over with this fresh canvas and I, needed many material items and I had limited resources in which to do that. But I viewed it as an adventure, okay? And now, it's been 6 years. Like, I wouldn't want to live any other way. I wouldn't want to go back to excess and disposable and prepackaged living. And it doesn't have to be that drastic. Okay. So with me, for example, it simply began with some potted herbs. The first year I just started with some potted herbs. And then just one step at a time, as you learn, you learn how to sew a button on, or you learn how to patch something that you may previously have thrown away, or you learn how to use fabric to cover something and make it new again, or how to sand something down and restain it and give it a whole new life. Okay. So it's little things. And what I have found over time was that even when I had the funds to buy retail, I was still going to what we call, in our house, we call it treasure hunting. We literally began to manifest brand new items with the tags still on them at thrift stores or even on the side of the road. They became manifestation shoots. We asked for what we wanted and it would just show up. It's learning alchemy. It's magic. And so if we can view it from that lens, we can stop seeing it from a lack matrix perspective and begin to see this as an opportunity to put our new skills and abilities to the test. And you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. Because, what I believe is that ultimately this whole idea of apocalypse and mass catastrophe and famine and all of that coming up is this collective guilt, okay? The understanding from our new perspective just how much we have used and abused the earth and our fellow brothers and sisters. And we do have this remembrance of it, whether it's in this lifetime or the last. And this guilt is in conjunction with letting go of the idea of karma at the same time. Okay, so we've been programmed to believe that we must be punished. We must atone. We must martyr ourselves. We must suffer. We must sacrifice. And again, that idea is a heavy third density age of Pisces, heavily doctrinated, dogmatic time of harsh religious, societal, and cultural views. And as this rises up, we must transmute that. We must forgive that. We must let it go. We need to let that story go. We must take the remembrance with us of the lessons that we learned from that time and integrate that into the idea that we are now holding a new frequency, a new vibration, and we know that we're not going to repeat these mistakes of the past because we've lived it. We don't need to buy into this ingrained idea of hell, of purgatory. Okay, we remember the days of torture, of being burned at the stake and hanged and drowned. And we must realize that living through that separation was punishment enough. That was punishment enough. And now we need to understand it from the lens of that time period, of that level of consciousness, of that density, and let it go. We must forgive and bring ourselves into a state of balance and harmony in order to move forward into our new script, into our new book. You are forgiven. You are whole. This is the idea we need to become vested in at this time. It's so important. I said this earlier and I'll say this again. You are the grid keepers. You are the way showers, the light bearers. You are the first. The other thing too, the other message I really got with this whole conjunction is that we're also leaving behind, along with this collective idea of apocalypse, of guilt, is this idea of the father, the patriarchal system, which has dictated our reality until this point. And we are in turn leaving behind the idea of the distorted feminine as well. So we're moving into a more exalted, a more integrated, a union of this divine masculine and feminine energy, and adapt to this idea. Because beyond our realm, the idea of mother and father does not exist. This is why we see angels and many ascended masters in an androgynous form. The idea of the absent father, the punishing father, this is an energy pattern we also are letting go of at this time. So it's many faceted. It's so much in just this short cycle of time. And like I said, there are parts of it that are going to feel amazing and forward moving. And, by the end, you're really going to feel like you have stepped through that threshold. You've gone through that 0 point of no return. And you are standing in the new earth, in the abundance matrix. It's just getting there. It's just cleaning up our plates, letting things go, integrating things that have been, dredges holding us back for lifetimes. I mean, we have to understand this is a brand new spiral, a brand new age, a brand new density. And we've inherited that. We have inherited that. That is our birthright. And we don't need to carry everything around anymore. It doesn't need to be a part of the construct that we are building in this new density. It's time to build a new, fresh foundation. And that's really exciting. So I hope that helped everyone out there. I hope that I mapped it all out. I know it was a lot of information to try to integrate, and I'll be sure to put this in chapters when I can. And I really hope that you're leaving this feeling more optimistic, more inspired, with a sense of safety and security about the future, and really looking forward to the month and really this next year ahead. So I'm sending you all big love. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and please share out there so that it increases the resonance. That really helps me with the time that I'm devoting to making these for you guys. So I'm sending you all big love. Bye.
Just wanted to say I love ya. Scully loves ya. Bye.